how does immigration deportation or removal work? I'm Attorney Pandeli, and we're here at the law offices of Alien Attorney. And here it varies a little bit into how removal or deportation works, depending on how you were apprehended and what your case looks like and the type of case that you have. But typically, what happens if you're caught crossing the border, if you or your loved one is caught crossing the border, the way it typically works is you get caught and apprehended, and there's a possible 48-hour detainer. Although that doesn't always happen. Typically if it's males that are alone, they're more likely to get caught and detained. And so if you have let's say a father with a child or a mother with a child, typically they might be booked and fingerprinted, and then they're let go. And so depending on the case, you could stay in detention, in which case they don't allow you for the possibility to be out and to look over and to have your case done while on the outside, while you're free. So they have 48 hours to, they can detain you and book you and do all the fingerprinting. And then within 72 hours, ICE, or Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has to give you an NTA, or also known as a notice to appear. And so this is required by law, and the NTA basically states that there's now a case in front of you, and you can talk to a judge, which is an immigration judge, and that's separate from ICE or Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And so then what happens is, once you're given the NTA, if you're on the inside, you could be transferred to a number of different detention centers. I mean, for example, we've seen people come from Texas. They go to Foxton, which is on the border it's in Georgia, it's on the border with Florida. And then from Foxton, we've had clients that get moved to Stewart. And Stewart is a very tricky place, but that's another subject, because the rates of getting out and winning your case are really low in Stewart particularly. But so what you have is you can be bounced around for quite a bit. Now during this whole time, there is the possibility that doesn't mean that it's going to happen, and every case is different, but there is the possibility that during this time you can get an attorney and look for a bond, or second, you can get a parole. Now, what's the difference between these two? A bond is filed and you are asking the immigration judge and the immigration court for a bond, okay? And then the judge tells you yay or nay, and then you might set a bond, and then there are conditions to the bond, and sometimes, the bond started $1,500, and, it could go up from there. And so for the bond, you ask to the immigration judge. When you're asking for parole, parole is asked to ICE, to typically your DO, your deportation officer. And so those are the two differences, and they can be done simultaneously, although typically in our experience, we typically will ask for parole, and then we'll go for a bond just to see how it is. Now, while you're in detention, there's several things that might take place depending on your case. And so a lot of the cases which we deal with are asylum claims. And so it could be political asylum or religious-based asylum or gender asylum. So basically, if it's a protected group, if you were prosecuted on the basis of politics or nationality or race, religion, gender, things like that, those are protected for asylum. So then in the case of asylum, then they will do what's called a credible fear interview. If you're on the outside, now same process is typically happening on the outside, right? I mean, yeah, you don't need a bond and you don't need a parole, but you go through a reasonable fear, interview, and things like that. And so in that reasonable fear interview or the credible fear interview, they're trying to determine ICE really is trying to determine whether your case is real. Do you have a case, and do they think that what you're saying and what happened to you is real, and that you really fear going back, and the fear is fear of prosecution or fear of torture. And so and you can get a positive or a negative. If you get a negative on the credible fear interview, it gets a little bit tougher, because then, well, ICE could tell you, sorry, you don't have a right, we're going to deport you, and sometimes they might offer you what's called voluntary departure. Voluntary departure is nice because you can leave on your own, so to speak, and it can be really positive towards the record that you have inside of the United States, because it works in favor of you, and because there's, for example, if you get caught and get deported without a voluntary departure, there's various types of bans that take place. For example, you cannot be in the country for, let's say, 5 years or 10 years, or depending on the case, it could be longer. And so ICE could offer you a voluntary departure in that case, and then, but you don't have to take it. You can say, I'd like to, either you have an attorney, or you can say, I'd like to talk to an immigration judge, and then the judge would look at your case again and see, well, did ICE make the right determination? And so these are some of the stages that take place. Now, later down in the stages, if you don't win your case, really, you get, at some point, there's an order to deport you, and that order has been signed, whether it's by a judge, or if you didn't see a judge, that's a different story, but that's signed by the judge, so then you're really waiting for either the next plane or the next bus to go back to your country of origin. Now, in the case where your case is accepted and they believe there is a credible fear interview, you're out, then they put you on the calendar. And so when they put you on the judicial calendar or the immigration calendar, the first, and let's say you're out now. Well, first, if you're out, let's say you won your bond, you go from what's called the detained calendar to the non-detained calendar. And so the detained calendar is a lot faster, okay? So these are cases that people are in custody, and so they really need to work these cases fast. And so sometimes it cannot be fast enough, because someone can be in detention for 6 months, and we've, not us personally, but we know of cases that, or people have called us saying that their loved ones were in custody for like over 9 months, over 10 months. And that's a little ridiculous, especially for a civil violation, such as immigration. Although in many ways the penalties are quite criminal. You are getting detained, and you are getting confined, and your liberty is at stake. But so in essence, when you're outside now, you get put on the non-detained calendar, and typically the non-detained calendar is a lot slower. And when I say a lot slower, it's really, really a lot slower. It could take your next calendar, which is the master calendar here, it could take you a very long time. It could take you 3 years, depending. So again, the words that I'm saying, they're very conditioned on where is the current immigration calendar and what are the current resources. The immigration judges have been fighting for years to get additional resources so they can speed up these cases, but not many resources have been given to them, so that elongates the caseload, that makes the cases go out even further. And so then once you have, let's say you come back after a period of time and you have your master calendar hearing, and the master calendar hearing is determining, well, kind of what's going on with your case, what type of case it is, where do you, and then after that, it's determined that maybe you need an individual hearing, and so you have an individual hearing. That would be your second hearing. And then during this time, there might be delays, or there might be postponements, or there's various things, but they try to, once there's an individual hearing, you might have individual and a merits hearing. So a merits hearing is really, they look to what are the merits of your case, and then just try to determine where is the case at, okay? And so during this period, you know, there's various filings that take place from your attorneys. There is your, you know, asylum brief and application. So there's a number of things here. But this video is just here to give you a general overview. That's the general process that takes place when you're detained, and then you're out of detention, and kind of how does your case progress through the immigration court system. Thank you for watching, and as always, give us a thumbs up down in the video, and, you know, tell us how we're doing. And if you have any questions, you know, put them in the comments, and we'll try to make another video about it. Lastly, if you want peace of mind, call us. If you want peace of mind, call us, and you know, do it right. Thank you for watching.